Hey everyone, my name is Taps, and today I'm going to be discussing the highlights from the amazing AMA that we had on Friday, actually, that had some pretty big pieces that really aren't being actively discussed right now. I'm also going to take a look at a huge license that has been announced, but has been kind of flying under the radar since Comic-Con and going to bring a little bit more awareness to it. As always, if you're new to the channel, welcome to the community and feel free to subscribe. I'm a crypto, stock, and real estate investor, but never a financial advisor. Now, I know, the AMA was on Friday, and now it's Monday night or Tuesday when I'll be releasing this, and I'm just now covering it, but I have been resting easy over the weekend to recover quicker, and so I will be dropping more content effective this week and next. With that said, let's get into this. Let's address some of the intel that was shared during the AMA from Reese, Alex, who's in marketing, and of course, the always excited Trevor, who does most of the rendering and development of the Veve collectibles. The first piece was actually on some frustration around the Marvel Mighties drop, which, by the way, sold out. This was crazy. Like, I thought we'd actually have some collectibles that were gonna last, right? I was like, oh, they're this new kind of more childlike drop, but 100,000 editions gone in 15 minutes. That's absolutely crazy. And that's following a 60,000 edition drop of the Spideys the week before. So 160,000 editions of these NFTs sold in 2 weeks. This has to be a record for the NFT space, and this drop really blew my mind, but I digress. So the question was, because some were actually frustrated that this was our first appearance of Steve Rogers and Bucky and like Red Skull, and basically these five main characters, of them being the first appearance in the Veve app in this form, in the Marvel Mighties form, instead of the actual superhero figures that look similar to Spidey. Now, first of all, this drop is not a collectible, right? So these were created specifically from Marvel in collaboration through the partnership with Veve, which is already an incredible thing. But Alex assured us that this will not be the only first appearance of, like a Steve Rogers in this form or a Red Skull, and that we will actually see something along the lines of up to 4 iterations of Captain America and or Red Skull. So this is first appearance of Steve Rogers in this form, right? But we could see another form of Captain America or Steve Rogers that we will have a first appearance of that as well. So this is not the only first one and done first appearance. And 4 iterations means we'll be seeing a lot more of the Cap and Red Skull, who I think is awesome, in the near future. And I can't remember where in the conversation, because it was roughly about an hour, 45-minute AMA, but somewhere in that conversation, Alex did drop that we will be seeing plenty more one-of-one drops. Now, this is exciting because we saw what happened with the Superman drop, which is a one-of-one. And what that means is basically it isn't like a one-in-one edition. It's a one collectible that completes the set. So with the Superman drop, all you need is Superman, and that is one set, which is great for building up towards the Master Collector program. And what was great was we saw Superman drop for 50 gems, and literally 24, maybe 48 hours later, it had already 10x, and actually went higher than 10x shortly after people realized it was just a one-of-one and how valuable that is. And for an uncommon. So him saying that we're gonna have more one-of-one sets, or plenty of, is very exciting. And one thing I forgot to mention about the Marvel Mighties is it made a lot of different publications. So when we're asking, what are Rogers and Cohen doing? They're making sure that Veve is getting plastered everywhere in tune with Marvel. We can see not only in Marvel's things, but in multiple different sources like Tech Times and Yahoo Finance. The Yahoo Finance article is actually really strong, and it highlights about how the Spidey collection sold out 60,500 NFTs within 24 hours of launch. So we're seeing a lot of attention towards Marvel. We're seeing a lot of attention towards what's happening in the NFT space and what Veve is doing that is absolutely a differentiator to the space. And speaking of which, when asked about the additional fee that happens in the marketplace when it comes to Marvel, Trevor explained that this is a huge differentiator for Veve versus other platforms because it's a perpetual royalty for brands, artists, licensors. This is a game changer. It's not just one and done, but a residual way for them to keep capitalizing on the partnership and through their collectibles NFTs. So if you're a licensor and you have a choice to build and put your content into a project, would you choose a project that's been created maybe on Binance that has just kind of sprouted up out of nowhere and has really no proof of success, or would you put it on Veve, which has been built over the past 4 years, shows tremendous success, and you can get perpetual royalties on what you've created instead of just a one and done? Huge differentiator for Veve and Ecomi, and I can't wait to see how this broadens out for these artists and licensors. When asked about the NFLPA drop, we know that NFLPA was announced a couple months ago. We've seen Marshawn Lynch tease during some different AMAs and conferences that Dan has been at. Reese said we may be seeing something in a few weeks' time. They're not going to say this is when it's happening, when we're a month out or 4 weeks out or whatever, but we do know that the NFL season starts September 13th. That's only a few weeks away and following Marvel Month, so I wouldn't be surprised if this is soon coming for the month of September. I think this is actually much better timing than if this had dropped at the end of Q2 like it was supposed to, because yes, it's in league with the season, no pun intended, but also Tom Brady just released his NFTs with DraftKings and they are selling out like crazy. So this is bringing a lot more awareness to sports and athletes as a whole. And someone also asked about college mascots, and Reese said it's potentially a thing and they're in talks. So the fact that he said they're in talks means they are clearly having conversation around mascots or college mascots, or maybe even just mascots in general. There were many questions about the Veveverse, most of which we've already all discussed in other AMAs, so I'm not going to get into too much of that side, but there was one that asked about adding more of a gaming element to Veve, and one person mentioned how excited they were for Street Fighter to hit Veve, which we know. You can see Street Fighter here, Capcom, we've known about it for months and months, but we have not seen it yet. And they asked if it's possible for Veve to build a game similar to where you can basically, fight via Street Fighter or something along those lines. And how Trevor answered this was unique. He said it's a lot harder to break into the gaming world against a Capcom or Sims or Sony, and instead it's much easier to work with a Capcom or a Sims and to attract them to their user base. So it was a really unique way of saying Veve will most likely not be building any gaming anytime soon. I mean, they have the mini games and the metaverse coming, but they do have potentially the ability to attract gaming licensors to build something in collaboration, which is very interesting. This is cheaper and smarter because they would have to hire tons and tons of developers and probably shift priorities entirely to build out an entire gaming side of Veve immediately. But instead, they're working already with the licensors. So maybe they could do something in collaboration where they utilize their developers in a partnership to launch in Veve. Very interesting, and I liked how Trevor answered it. There was also a question about a free collectible for new users to get started, which I do think that would actually be a great idea, but it doesn't sound like that will be a thing yet. However, Reese did mention again that for those of us who have been users since Season 1 drops, we will be receiving Season 1 badges, and they really like the idea of seasonal specific drops for like Christmas or other holidays or something along those lines, which they've mentioned before. Now, I don't know what that means long term, but I wonder if it would receive its own tag, like an SE for like seasonal edition, but it's been mentioned again in the past, so it may have legs coming into Xmas or maybe even Halloween, or maybe both. Again, we know that we have Marvel, and this is speculation, but I am willing to bet money that we also have Disney as well, because thanks to Crypto Maniac's vid a while back, and I covered around it as well, that we saw a peek at a sliver of a license, and it was a perfect matchup to Cars from Pixar. So I would love to see something seasonal. I think something around Halloween or Christmas Nightmare Before Christmas would be really successful. And what's great about a lot of these collectibles is they are very collectible and they sell very well on Sideshow. We can even see Bear Brick of Sally. Now, the final key point that was addressed was the CE tag, which represents the con exclusive drops that we saw for the Comic-Con event. Now, Alex said this will be the case for all cons, not just Comic-Con. He also mentioned several examples like the New York Comic-Con and Designer Con. Now, Reese also mentioned New York Comic-Con during my recent AMA with him just a little over a week ago. Now, if I'm collecting all of the breadcrumbs that they constantly drop, then I'm going to speculate that there is a high chance that Veve and Ecomi will be having a role or present at both of these events. That's New York Comic-Con, which is coming in October, and Designer Con, which is in November. New York Comic-Con is October 7th through the 10th. And pending on what happens with any more lockdowns, this is actually one that I might reserve a ticket for and see if I can fly out for. So New York Comic Con is one of the top 10 cons in the United States for comics. So this will be a pretty big one, as well as Designer Con is an annual art and design convention that smashes together collectible toys and designer goods with urban underground and pop art. D-Con is over 300,000 square foot. 700 vendors, art and custom shows, live demonstrations, and much, much more. Over 65,000 participants, 550 artists, and actually 805 vendors. And that is coming November 12th through the 14th in Anaheim, California. So that might be another one I might be able to check out. All right, now on to the huge license that just went underneath our nose, and Ecomi just tweeted a more blatant, hey, check this out, tweet that pointed out this massive license. So they retweeted their drop from Veve welcomes Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. So we saw Bill and Ted with the 2D posters that were dropped, but this is actually a little bit more in depth. Now, it isn't just the 2D poster. This is the first time a digital collectible has been offered on Veve with likeness rights. And as part of the series, fans will be able to party on with digital collectibles featuring the true likeness of Ted Logan, Keanu Reeves, and Bill Preston, Alex Winter. Bill and Ted, the actors Keanu Reeves and Alex Winter, as well as a highly detailed replica of the memorable phone booth time machine from the films. Now, that word, true likeness rights, for Keanu Reeves in Bill and Ted, thanks to Creative Licensing Corporation. So this is our first look at the celebrity or influencer vertical that Reese hinted at many months ago, in my opinion. But what other celebrity moguls does Creative Licensing Corp have likeness rights to? I mean, take your pick. They have so many properties that span action, comedy, drama, family, horror, music, romance, sci-fi. Let's just go through a few of some names that you will recognize, like Arnold Schwarzenegger, Sylvester Stallone, Daniel Day-Lewis, Ryan Gosling. How about Jim Carrey or Charlie Sheen or Adam Sandler? Bruce Campbell from Evil Dead, Army of Darkness, love the series. Or the Wayans brothers. We can see Bill and Ted with Keanu Reeves right here. See Al Pacino. We can see Robert De Niro, Kevin Costner. And the one that I'm really excited is the horror side. So I would love to see Jason from Halloween, or Dracula, or Frankenstein, or the Wolfman, the Puppet Master. I mean, The Exorcist, just more of a horror side to our Veve collectibles, and CLC seems to have a lot of licensing in this genre. The list goes on, and of course, none of these are confirmed, but we have likeness to Keanu Reeves from Bill and Ted. I wouldn't be surprised if we got something like Arnold or Sylvester Stallone, or even just Jason scaring us through a corn maze in our Veveverse one day. This is a big license and going to broaden who we can reach on the celebrity side, which, you know, celebrities like to talk, and we already saw those who've done things in NFT space that have been wildly successful. So in just a few months' time, Veve went from barely known to hundreds of thousands of users, hundreds of major brands and licensors lining up just to work with them, planning and partnering with con events where they can increase exposure, and now working with true likeness of the biggest celebrities in the world. All before the actual OMI token is granted its utility, which is coming up pretty soon. It's definitely felt like a long ride, even though it's only been 5 or 6 months, which is really not long for an investment. There's a lot happening in the crypto space and a lot of amazing projects out there that are making moves right now, and I'm investing in some others as well, but I, for one, am not going to sell a single bit of my OMI. They've been pulling back this massive spring, just coiling it back for months and months now, and it's just a bit more. We are literally on the cusp of having that spring released and finally see the token take off as a result, as well as the collectibles have. So I've said it before, but patience, my friends, because we are almost there. As always, I hope you found my content valuable, and if so, please hit the like button so that others can see this content, and leave a comment down below. The likes and comments appease the algo overlords and help my channel to continue to grow. And if you haven't yet, please hit the subscribe button and notification bell for future content. That's it for today. I'm Taps. Thank you for your time, and happy trading.